Hi everyone, welcome to CORS. Let's continue building authorization server. In the previous video, we have seen how to implement access token in the authorization server, and we have tested that implementation using the confidential client. And that confidential client was built in this playlist only in the initial videos. In the initial videos, we have created a public client as well. Now, in this video, we want to connect that public client to this authorization server. In the previous video, we were running both applications, authorization server and confidential client on the same machine. So they were both running on the local host, but with a different domain name. So authorization server was running on localhost and confidential client was running on 127.0.0.1. So that is a one way to separate the applications which are running on the same machine. And we did that because we want to separate their cookies or session. Now in this video as well, we want to do that, but I will show you another way by which you can do that. Now let's say we want to run our authorization server on some other domain, let's say authorizationserver.com. But if you do that, it won't work. Obviously, because your authorization server is not hosted there. But let's say you want to tell your computer that whenever some request goes to authorizationserver.com, it should go to your authorization server which is running on localhost. You can tell your computer to do that using a file which is called hosts file. So in the Mac OS and Linux, the file will be mostly under etc directory, but you can search on the internet like how to do that. So I will just open that. So we need the sudo privilege in order to edit that file. So I will open that file sudo etc hosts. Sorry, I want to open the file in editor vim. So I will just do that sudo vim and then the file name. It will ask me for password. So I will provide the password here. Now this is the file. So if you see this line 127.0.0.1 space auth.localhost, that was not there earlier. I added that. So what I'm telling is whenever there is a request to this domain auth.localhost, then instead of doing some lookup to DNS servers, just to return this IP address 127.0.0.1 and the request will go to this IP, but the domain name will be auth.localhost. And since the sessions and cookies are separated based on the domain name, so there will not be any interference between two separate domains. So here you can see there is already this configuration. So whenever you type localhost in the browser, the request is sent to 127.0.0.1. So either you can type localhost or you can type this long IP address, whatever you want. And you can type ::1 as well. That will also work. So that is a one way. So let's say you have multiple servers running in your machine and you want to separate them. So if you only use localhost or this IP address, then you will be able to run two services. But if you have multiple services, then you can give each service different name. And one thing to note here is that don't try to give the name like this one. For example, if I try to give it name like auth dot let's say dev or dot com, so don't try to give the top level domain which is well known, because in that case your laptop will not look at this file. It will try to contact DNS server to get the IP address for that domain name. So I have used auth.localhost. You can use anything you want, but this localhost is not a top level domain. So I'm just using auth.localhost. So that is out of the way. Now let's start our services. So first of all, I will start authorization server, application, and I will run it. So my database server is running here. Authorization server should be able to connect to that database, and it is running. Now let me show you whether that domain name to IP mapping is working or not. So what I will do is I will issue one curly request so to HTTP. So instead of localhost, it will be auth.localhost. Now I need to give the port, which is 9000, and realms. So you can see this is returning the realm. Now let's try to fetch the clients as well. So realms, realm ID is Java and clients. And if I pretty print it, so you can see we have this client here. This is the client ID, realm ID. This is the name. And if you see, this is not a confidential client. And these are the web origins and like all the information about the client. So we can see that this mapping is working. So we can use this. So let's do that. I will copy this one and let's go to public client ASP. So this is the single page application or public client which we built in the initial videos of this playlist. So I will go to assets, JS and constants.js. So here we are keeping all the constants required. So first for the authorization endpoint. So I have localhost 8080 realms and this one. So this is the authorization endpoint when we were using key clock. So I will just change it. So I will change it to, this will be changed to this one. HTTP auth.localhost. Then this is the port, realms, and the realm ID is Java. And we just have auth. So this is the authorization endpoint. Now about token endpoint, I will just copy it and I will paste it here. And I will replace the auth with token. Now client ID. So this is the client ID which we will use. I will copy it. I will paste it here and redirect URI suffix auth callback. So you can see redirect URI. Okay, it is correct auth callback. So we don't need to change anything here. Now export const user info endpoint. So here as well, I will just you know do this. Sorry, not that one. I need to copy this one. I will copy that and I will paste that here. Realms and user info. But we have not implemented user info. But what we are doing here is that we are displaying the access token in the web page. And if there is an error fetching the user, we are not doing anything. So we are not worrying about that here. So that's all the changes which we need to do here. Now let's try to run it. So here I am already inside public client ASPA and what I will do is Python 3 and http dot server. So you can issue this command hyphen help and then you can get the help for this command like how to serve the files in the directory. So I will just use this command http dot server. Now I need this B. So this will be localhost or I don't need to provide that. So I think that default is all interfaces. So I don't need to provide this binding address. I just need to provide the directory. So directory dot that is current directory. And by default also it is the current directory. I don't need to provide the HTTP version, but I need to provide the port. So the port will be 5000, 5000, and it is running. And I will go to localhost 5000. And we can see welcome to auth to public client demo app. And I will inspect because I want to see the request. Click on connect your account. Now you can see in the URL bar we have auth.localhost colon 9000 and we are getting this error invalid redirect URI. So let's see why are we getting that. So if we click here, the redirect URI is http localhost 5000 auth callback. Yeah, so after callback we have this slash, so we need to remove that. So let's go there in the constants. I will remove this slash. So let's save it and let's go back. Let's click on connect your account again. Now you can see we are getting this page login to Java. But if you see in the URL section, we have auth.localhost colon 9000. So let's give the username, that is user1, and I will provide the password for it, and I will click on sign in. Now you can see we are asking the user for these scopes, and we have defined those somewhere. So if we go to as auth callback.js, so here somewhere we should have those scopes. So let's go to util.js. Yeah, here. So when we are generating this URL, authorization URL, then we are passing OpenID, email, and profile as a scope. But let's pass two more scopes: contact dot read and contact dot write. Let's save it, and let's go back, refresh it, connect your account. Now I think if we click on this request as well, the scopes are OpenID, email, and profile only. Why do we have? Okay, yeah. So let's refresh it. Now click on connect your account. If I go here, okay, so the scopes are OpenID, email, and profile only. We need to, I think I've changed. So, okay, let's save the file, go back, refresh it, and okay, so these files are coming from memory cache. So I will just disable the cache here, disable cache, and then reload it. And now they are not coming from the cache. So if I click on connect your account, if you see in this request, we are sending contact.read, contact.write scopes as well. Let's provide the username, which is user1, and provide the password. Click on sign in button. Now you can see we are asking the user to provide consent for these five scopes, out of which three are required and two are optional. Now out of these two optional scope, user will untick this edit your context scope, and it will click on he will click on allow button. Click on allow, and we can see this is the authorization code and this is the state. But when we are sending this request, token request, we are getting CORS error. So we are sending this request with correct payload. So we have client ID, grant type, code, and redirect URI. But still we are getting this CORS error because this is on the different origin. So we need to handle that CORS error. We need to do some CORS configuration in the authorization server so that this request will be allowed. Now let's think about how we want to handle the CORS error. So for that, let's go to token controller. Now, if you remember, for public clients, we have web origins. So if I go to the terminal, and here you can see we have these two web origins. So what this means is these two web origins should be allowed by authorization server to make access token request. So we need to allow cross origin resource sharing request or CORS requests from these origins. So let's do that. So we cannot just put this cross origin annotation here because we don't know in advance what are all the URLs for which we need to allow the CORS request. So for that we need to do something else. So what we need to do is we need to create a filter. So let's do that. So I will mark the class as component. So I will create a new class here, and I will call it token CORS filter, and this will extend once per request filter. Now there is already CORS processor, which is default CORS processor, which process the CORS request given CORS configuration. So we will create CORS configuration, but first let's create CORS processor. So I will create private final CORS processor, will be new default CORS processor. So this is the CORS processor. Now we are getting this error because we need to implement this method, do filter internal. So it is taking a HTTP servlet request and HTTP servlet response and a filter chain. And it may throw these exceptions. So here we have a request and response objects. So we can get whatever information we want from the request, and we can manipulate response if we want. And after that, we can call the next filter in the filter chain using this filter chain object. So let's do that. First of all, I want to apply this CORS configuration based on the URL. So I will get hold of one object of type URL based CORS configuration source. So I will just do where source equal to new URL based CORS configuration source. Now we need to create a CORS configuration. So I will do that. I will say where configuration equal to new CORS configuration. In the configuration, we need to provide the allowed origins, headers, and methods. So let's do that. But first of all, I want to run this filter only when the request is for access token. So for that, we need to get hold of the path of the request. So let's say string, you can say path info will be request dot get path info. So this will give us the information or the path of the request. Now we have this path info, and so the path info will have the slash. So path info will be of like this type slash, let's say realms, then we will have realm ID, and then we will have token. So this is the pattern of path. So let's call it path only. Now first I want to check if the path starts with slash. So if path dot starts with this slash, then I want to remove this slash. So path will be path dot substring 1. Otherwise we will not modify the path. Now we have the path. So now here we don't have this slash. Now we want to spread the path based on these slashes so that we get all these three components of the path. So let's do that. So path dot split using this slash, and I will put it in a variable, and I will call it path elements. Now I will write one condition here to check whether this request is token request or not. So for that, path elements dot length should be 3, and path elements 0. So the first part should be equal to realms, and the third element should be equal to token, and the first element will be the realm ID, so which you already know. Now let's get the realm ID here. String realm ID will be path element 1. So this is the realm ID. Now what we want to do is, for this realm we have many clients. Now out of all those clients, I want to get all the web origins so that those web origins will be allowed. So let's do that. List string allowed origins will be, let's say, this dot. Now here we need the client service or token service. So let's say we need the realm service here. So I will say realm service. So we need to inject the realm service here. Let's do that. So instead of injecting realm service, let's say token service. And here I will inject the token service. Private final token service. And we need to inject it using constructor. So I will add constructor parameter. So this dot token service dot get allowed origins for this realm. Now there is no method, so I will create this method. So for now, let's just return list dot of this one. So for now, we are just returning one empty string, but we will complete this method later on. So now we have all the origins which should be allowed. Now we will put all these allowed origins in the in this configuration, in the CORS configuration which we have created here. So let's do that. We will say configuration dot set allowed origins and allowed origins. Now let's say we want to only support get and post method. So configuration dot set allowed methods. So list of options and head. So these two methods are important or required, and then we want to support get and post request. Now we need to set the allowed headers as well. Now let's say we want to allow all the headers. So headers, we can just set allowed header or add allowed header. So we will just add one allowed header, which will be start. That means all the headers are allowed. Now after that, we will add this configuration in the source. So let's do that. Source dot register CORS configuration, and the pattern of the request will be this one. And let's just register this configuration. So that means for all the requests, register this configuration. But if we are inside this if condition, that we know that this request is for token request only. So that means that we are registering this configuration for all the token request, or the token current request if it is a token request. Now we are coming out of this if condition. Now here what we want to do is we want to get the CORS configuration from this source which is for the current request. We could have done this inside if, but we are doing this outside if. So for example, in the future we need to add another CORS configuration for different type of request. Then we don't need to duplicate the rest of the code. So here I will just say CORS configuration. CORS configuration will be source dot get CORS configuration for the given request. So this will give us the CORS configuration which is applicable for the current request. Now after that, boolean is or now we already have this CORS processor, so we will use that CORS processor dot process request, and it will have the configuration which is this CORS configuration, then request, and we have response. So if we have, so we are calling process request method of CORS processor, so it will process the CORS request based on this configuration, this request, and this response, and it will return as. So let's put it inside a variable is valid. That means if the request is valid according to this configuration or not. So let's say if the request is not valid, or if it is not valid but it is pre-flight request. So request, in that case we don't want this request to go ahead, so we will just return here. But in all cases we will just do filter chain dot do filter. So we will call the next filter using filter chain, and we will pass the request and response here. So that is the CORS configuration which we need. Okay, now let's rerun the authorization server. So I will just rerun the authorization server here. But we forgot to do one change in the token service. We are returning this list of one string which is empty, but here we need to return the actual web origins which are registered for this realm. So first of all, what I will do is, let's say list string allowed origins will be new array list. So for the given realm, first of all, I will fetch all the clients. So let's do that. This dot client service dot get all. Okay, let's go to client service. I think there should be get all method. Okay, but it is not public. So let's make it public. Now the get all method is public. We have one related problem here. Okay, dot get all, and it needs a realm ID. So this will give us all the clients for the given realm ID, and for each client we will get the allowed origins. So we have the client. So client dot get web origins. So and this will be one string with commas. So this is a list of allowed web origins and which are comma separated. So we will split them using comma, split comma, and then we will get an array of strings. So and I will call it origins. Now we need to add all these origins inside allowed origin. So collections dot add all. So inside allowed origins, I will add all the origins. Okay. So this add all. Okay. So we will add all the elements inside origins into allowed origins in this list. And at the end, we will just return this allowed origins list. So that was it. So what we did is we fetched all the clients, and for each client there are many web origins. So we put all these web origins inside allowed origins. So I guess that was all we need to do. Now I will just go to authorization code, and here in the in the previous video I changed the lifetime of this authorization code to 10 minutes, but let's just say 30 seconds again. So this authorization code will be valid for 30 seconds only. Let's restart the authorization server, and okay. So this is the public client which is already running. I will go here 5000. Let's click on connect your account. So we have internal server error. Let's see what is the error. Here we are getting some error. Cannot invoke strings dot starts with a string because path is null. Okay. So I guess I will go to token controller here. Yeah. So yeah, there are two types of path. So one is servlet path and the another is this path info. So we need to add both of these paths. So let's do that. So first I will do request.get servlet path, and I will put it in a variable. But if let's say servlet path is null, then I will just make it empty string, and then we have this path info. So let's say request.get path info, and I will put it in a variable path info. Let's say if path info is null, in that case We will say path info is an empty string, and then path will be servlet path plus path info. So now we have the correct path and we are working with path here. Okay, let's restart the server and go here. Okay, so let's click on connect your account. Now we have username and password here. So username is user1, password is this one, and we are getting this authorization interface. Okay, let's untick this edit your context, click on allow. Now we can see, so we are getting some error in user info, but don't worry about that because we have not implemented user info. But if you go above and we see this token request, we are sending the token request here and we are getting the response back. But if you see in the preview response, you will not see anything. Why? Because I think in the response header we have cache control no store. So I mentioned that in the previous video and the video before that as well, that we will set this header cache control no store so that access token is not visible and it is not stored anywhere. But we are displaying that here. Let's copy it. I will copy the access token and jwt.io. I will go to jwt.io and I will paste the access token here. So I will paste it here. Now you can see the header in the header type is JWT, algorithm is RS256. That means SHA256 with RSA. This is the issuer, and we have this is the expiration time of this access token. This is the audience. This is the subject or the username or user ID of the user. This is the client ID who requested to fetch the access token. This is the timestamp when the access token was issued. This is the unique identifier of this token. And in this scope, we are getting OpenID, profile, contact.read, and email. We are not getting contact.write because we unticked that scope. That is how we solve the CORS problem for public clients. That is it for this video. Thank you for watching it. I will meet you in the next one. Bye.